Grace Marshall, you've just written a book.
I have, again.
Tell me about it.
Okay, so I've just written a book. It's called How to Be Really Productive, and the subtitle of that is Achieving Clarity and Getting Results in a World Where Work Never Ends.
It's easy for you to say.
Yeah, it's... Yeah, definitely.
So this is a much longer book. You did a shorter book before, and then this one's meaty, and there's a lot to it, and I was privileged to be one of your early readers, one of your test readers. So tell me about the process, like how did you tackle this one? How is it different perhaps from the shorter book you did before?
Yeah, so it was completely different. So the first book was 21 Ways to Manage the Stuff That Sucks Up Your Time, and there was a very clear kind of, here's the style, here are the 21 ways. It was part of a series, so my publisher gave me some pretty strict guidelines, which were quite helpful actually, to kind of really narrow down those ideas. This time round, the publisher went, "Oh, write the book you want to write."
Blank slate, yeah.
It's like, it's the best thing you could hear and the worst thing you could hear as a writer.
I relate to that.
And so I think a lot of it was about figuring out, okay, if I'm going to write a book on productivity, what's important to me? You know, what do I want to put in there? What are the conversations that I'm having with other people? What are the conversations I'm not seeing in other productivity books as well? So I think the thing that was really important to me was there are lots and lots of books dedicated to how to go faster on the hamster wheel. And what I wanted to do was to help people find ways of doing their best work and to have fun doing it and to have a life at work and a life outside of work as well. And some of those conversations around, how do we define between fake work and real work?
Yeah.
How do we stop being so busy but actually be more productive? How do we work with other people? So, if I'm productive, I've got myself super organised, I've come on one of the Think Productive workshops, I'm a productivity ninja, but what about everybody else in my office? And how to kind of deal with those kind of team working things. A big piece for me was the personality piece. So there's a chapter called Being Human, which is about helping, for me, it's really about addressing people like me, actually, who when we first looked at productivity thought, I'm not one of those super organised types. And you'll know how that feels. And maybe this will only work for certain types of people. And my big passion is that actually I think everybody can be a productivity ninja. Everybody can be productive, and it's about finding what works for you. So finding what works with your strengths, but also finding what helps to cushion some of those vulnerabilities as well. And then there's also a big part of it is around juggling and kind of work-life rhythm, and how do we navigate this kind of weird and wonderful and rich, multifaceted life that we have, where we don't want to put one part of our life on hold for another, and we don't want to be able to kind of compartmentalise and separate it all, but we will want it to work well together rather than feel like we're just kind of going from one chaos to another.
Tell me a little bit about process. I'm dying to ask you this. It's like, what I like about your writing is that you have lots of these little gem ideas and you just kind of just dot them around the place. So what that presumably means is you have some bigger themes, but like they could almost go in like lots of different orders, like go in kind of any order. So how did you deal with what was going to go where, and the assumptions that you have to make as a writer in terms of the the sort of narrative structure, and like what have I told them about already and what have I not? Like how did you sort of structure all that together and know where to start and where to end? And
yeah, so I think the beginning process is very much almost like vomiting on a page. So it's just about getting out of it.
Yeah.
So I would have like, okay, I've got this idea, this snippet, and I just kind of put it there. And
you in Scrivener doing that? Is that?
Yeah, so Scrivener's brilliant for doing that. It's because it's so easy to chop and change and move things around. It's almost like you're trying to build a jigsaw puzzle. Yeah. But you haven't got the picture at the front telling you what it's going to look like, and actually each piece isn't defined yet. So you're defining the pieces as well as then moving them around, going, oh, that could go well with that.
And that bit's a shoe and that bit's a head, and then
that's it. And kind of you're creating this picture as you go along, and then there are some really beautiful moments where like, oh, okay, that's coming together and that's forming well. There are some horrible moments where you're looking and going, it's just not working. Like I'm stuck. And then there are some very painful but necessary painful moments. Yeah. So, like for example, right at the end, we had it all done. I sent it out to a few people, including yourself, to kind of read and review and give me some fresh perspectives on it. And what kept coming back was, Grace, we think chapter 7 should be chapter 1.
Yeah.
And it's like you've just spent hours and hours painfully stitching. It's like stitching a tapestry together, and then getting to a point where you realise actually you need to move that over there, and you've got to unpick it all and then try and make it all, go back and sew it all back together, but have it all look seamless like it was all meant to be. And it was a painful process, but I think it was worth it. Yeah.
Did you have, so there's a lovely phrase I learnt in improvised comedy, which is the idea of 1,000 tiny funerals. So you have there's lots of ideas that you have that then don't make the final cut. So in improv, it's like you have this idea, but then the scene goes in a different direction. And in your head, you're going, damn, gotta get rid of that one. And so you lose it. Did you have anything like that where you'd written something and then it didn't make the cut, or it just wasn't in the right sort of theme or anything like that?
Yeah, probably quite a lot of things. I think what I did when I was, especially when I was editing, I had, so the thing with Scrivener is nothing ever gets properly deleted, it always just goes into trash, which is really useful. But when I was editing as well, I split the screen into two halves, and the bottom half was just the cutting room floor.
Oh, interesting, okay.
And so anything I thought I'm taking out, I'm just going to chuck it on there, so that if I get to a point where I thought, actually I want that back, I can kind of go and grab it and put it back. And that was a bit of a safety blanket for me, in terms of, because otherwise it's really hard when you spent hours writing something to just, delete something and go, what if I need it again?
Yeah, I tend to find with Scrivener, like, as soon as I get into, as soon as I've got the chapter structures organised, then I only really work from that. Like I work from the research as well, but it's all, I'm just kind of working on one bit at a time, and then I might take something out of chapter 3 and put it into chapter 7, but like I never really work. I think some people work with Scrivener with like 50 or 60 of those little files on the left hand side, but for me it's like, it has to be chapter by chapter for some reason.
So I kind of do a bit of a hybrid, so I've got the chapter, but then underneath there's several different sections, because there are some things that can move it, actually that bit can go into there, or it can go into there. And so that helped me to be able to move it around. Yeah,
and just for anyone who's watching this who is writing a book in Microsoft Word or anywhere else like that, so the thing with Scrivener is that it's a very, very quick process to move from like the middle of your document to the start to the, chapter 2 to chapter 8, and it's like one click down the left hand side, as opposed to having to scroll up and down and remember your page numbers and all that sort of thing. So it just makes it super agile for me.
Yeah, and, it's like having those jigsaw pieces laid out and being able to move them around.
I find like the downside of that is that then you put it into Word to give it to like your editor or whatever, and then they have to give it back to you in Word, and then you're stuck in Word, and it's like I've never really had the nerve to then take it back and convert it back to Scrivener and see if all the marks show up and stuff. So then you just mourn Scrivener for the rest of the process.
So I'm in the middle of that process at the moment. So far all I've had are some comments that kind of go, okay, in this bit, where you've said this and this, so I've been able to just search for that term rather than go for page numbers.
Yeah, super helpful.
So what I want to know, for you, when you were writing, how did you do stealth and camouflage? What kind of environment did you need to write in?
Yeah, so for the first big book for Productivity Ninja, I had write book on my to-do list for a long time, and I would come back and review that, and it was like, okay, this is not happening, this is not getting done. And in the end, I decided that I really needed that stealth and camouflage, and so I managed to find this beach hut in Sri Lanka that had no Wi-Fi, had just zero connection. I had this crappy little, Chinese mobile phone that all it did was like you could text, but to get the letter C, you'd have to press the button 3 times. It's like one of those old school ones. And that was me for like a month, just in this very disconnected space. I could, SMS home, and that was it. And that was me. It was just me and just a load of, notes and bits of paper and rocks from the beach to hold it all together. And that was, really for me a very productive time, and also just quite a profound time to be completely disconnected actually as well. Like I kind of learnt a lot. I did a lot of meditation. I got to know a Buddhist monk there quite well, and stuff like that. So it was a very I look back on it as a very fond time in my life, and definitely something I want to experience a couple more times.
I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
So my first book I had to write from my kitchen table, around like children and clients and other commitments.
That's quite fitting for you though, right? Because that's like your kitchen table is.
That's my office, and that's where everything happens. And I think. So I would have loved to have disappeared off for a month to a beach. Just be wonderful, but that's just not my life, and again that's not what I'm about. I don't want to put my family on hold for a month to do that, and my kids are at a different age to yours, so there were different things at play, but I found, so I did a lot of my self and camouflage with electronic unplugging.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was taking myself offline. In fact, I used social media as my accountability tool.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so
I like that.
I'd go onto Twitter and say, okay, I'm off to write another chapter. If you see me on here in the next half an hour, tell me off.
If you see me on here, then I'm not drinking my own Kool-Aid. That's a very smart move. And do you turn the Wi-Fi off at home? Like, do you turn the router off in your house? Or?
No, so my husband's the techie and he deals with all the techie stuff, so I'm not allowed to touch the router.
Oh, really? But so then the temptation's still there. How do you get around that?
I think that it's because if I go online, I'm a really sociable person. So if I go online, I will chat, and then I get found out. So it was the fear of being publicly embarrassed. Was bigger than the urge to go and socialise. So that's what helped with me. It was definitely the accountability. Second book, I actually found I needed a different change of environment. So it's interesting, like I noticed with my husband, he needs complete silence. For me, when there's complete silence, I find it really distracting. I don't know what that's all about, but I find I need a little bit of life in the background. So I found this little cafe that does beautiful coffee, really nice food, and I just perched myself in the corner, worked away, set up a tab. They came over like, do you need anything else? And
were they saying, do you need anything else, or were they saying like, will you buy something else?
No, they were pretty good. And I kept saying like, is this okay if I stay here? He was like, no, exactly. And it was a really nice kind of independent coffee shop, and they were all about creating a space for people like me to come and work, and there was some nice music in the background. And I just found like there was one time, I think it was just after I'd spent probably a good couple of weeks really agonising at the beginning of like, I don't know what I'm writing here. And then I got myself there and I was typing away and I was like, this actually feels fun. Like I actually remember how it feels to have fun writing now. And there was like Nina Simone playing in the background, and in fact they were roasting the coffee beans at the time, so I was inhaling coffee.
Oh, lovely.
And drinking tea and eating good food and tapping my foot along to Nina Simone. I thought, this is the perfect writer's life. And it wasn't like that every day, but it was nice to have that once. Yeah,
I mean, I think for me, increasingly, it's become the part of my job that I really just love the most. Is just that, the kind of the emotional roller coaster, the high points, the low points, the kind of light bulb moments, and the moments of sheer terror. And then you look back on the whole thing, all of that, as a sort of positive growth experience at the end. But here's my final question, because I can't answer this: writing a book or giving birth, which is harder?
So, good question.
Because I always say writing a book, obviously, right? That's the male answer. But.
So, giving birth is intense, but you also kind of it's super focused. There's going to be an end to it. Like it doesn't feel like at the time; it feels like going on for it, but there's going to be an end to it. And it's about going with the process. Whereas sometimes writing a book feels like, I've got to make this happen. Like giving birth, whether I want to or not, it's going to happen. Writing a book, I've got to make this happen. And I think sometimes that can trip you up. Yeah,
because you could just stay in the tunnel forever, right? Rather than see the light at the end of it and walk towards it. Whereas like giving birth, that's not possible. But
it's still painful.
And you've got to drive it.
Equally hard work, but different.